The sulfur industry is worth nearly $13 billion globally. But the workers who risk their lives to mine it in an active volcano make just $17 a day. Why? Because there's a demand for this important ingredient in sugar. And that's a pretty decent wage for the area. If you look at other booming industries, you'll see the same trend. From collecting açaí for our smoothie bowls to harvesting our table salt, people risk life, lung, and limb to make a buck in these billion-dollar industries. We journey around the world to see what it's like working some of the most dangerous jobs on the planet. In East Java, Indonesia, hundreds of miners face deadly smoke to extract sulfur, or devil's gold. Sulfur is used in everything from matches, fireworks, and gunpowder to detergent, paper, and batteries. It's what makes our sugar white. Working conditions inside Ijen volcano are so dangerous. Many miners don't live past 50 years old. Miners like Miztar carry up to 200 pounds of sulfur on their backs up and down these steep cliffs. And Miztar's been doing it for 30 years. This is as far as Miztar can go on his bike. There are no roads to the crater, so he has to walk the rest of the way. It's a 2-mile hike up to the ridge of Ijen volcano. He takes only his basket and a crowbar down into the 1,000-foot-deep crater here. Here, he faces the volcano's extreme environment. The air can reach over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and he works near one of the world's most toxic volcano lakes. And there's the smoke. The miners are freelance contractors, so they have to pay for their own gear, and many can't afford gas masks. Instead, they use handkerchiefs or towels dipped in water to keep the sulfur powder from sticking. But the smoke from inside the volcano is crucial for sulfur production. This is how it works. When the superhot smoke hits the cooler air outside, it condenses liquid and drips off the pipe. As it solidifies and cools, the sulfur will turn yellow, and miners can begin chipping off blocks. It's the sulfur's two colors that give it the name Devil's Gold. Once he fills his baskets, Miztar hoists them up on his shoulder to hike back. But that sulfur is not a light load. That's about 154 pounds. Miztar himself weighs just 132. They have to haul it up the steep walls of the crater. Once he reaches the rim of the crater, Miztar can transfer the sulfur to his trolley and begin the 2 miles back. The mining company pays on the weight of their loads. They get about 9 cents per kilo. With 2 loads, Miztar can make $17 a day. At the end of the day, Miztar returns home to eat dinner with his family and rest. Ijen looms over them, a symbol of how Miztar provides for his family's lives while it slowly takes a heavy weight to carry on his shoulders. India is one of the world's largest salt producers, and roughly a third of it comes from deep in this desert. Today, thousands of families live here, farming salt by hand. They're known as the açaí, and they've been salt producers in this harsh environment for generations. Each year, they arrive at the dry, cracked land of the Little Rand of Kutch in October. Patadia Gugabai and his wife carry everything they'll need to live in the desert for the next 6 months, including supplies to make their huts, clothes, farming tools, and all their food and water. First, they have to find the key to this whole operation, salty brine water underground. They dig 30 feet into the mud to get to it. The families then set up these government-subsidized solar panels. They'll power the pumps that bring brine water to the surface. Then the açaí build the salt pans, these expansive salt flats. The roller helps them flatten out the earth. They'll make 10 to 20 pans all by hand. It's backbreaking work. Then the farmers will release the salty brine water from the wells. It flows between the pans. By the last pan, the water reaches the 24% salinity needed to form big salt crystals. Over the next few months, as the water evaporates, salt crystals form. They start raking early each morning to avoid the hottest part of the day. But working here can be really dangerous. The life expectancy of a farmer is about 60 years, because not only do they face extreme temperatures, they're dealing with subsoil brine, which is highly acidic. And you also have exposure to that subsoil brine also comes with a lot of problems in skin. Many of the aguarias become blind from years of the bright sun reflecting off the white landscape. And because they're so far from the nearest village, accessing medical care is often too expensive. Despite these conditions, the aguarias live and work out here until spring, when the salt is finally ready. They harvest 3 times. The first produces the best quality salt. They leave in April, usually with over 1,000 tons of salt. And most farmers we spoke to said that this season's market price for salt is between $2 and $4 per ton. That means in a good year, a family will earn about $2,000 for months of grueling work. That's well below the poverty line. Most of the world's açaí comes from deep in the Amazon rainforest. People here risk climbing 50-foot-high palm trees to harvest the fruit. These berries have become one of the most popular so-called superfoods in the US. And they aren't cheap. One bowl can cost up to $15. And while the berry has exploded in popularity in recent decades, small farms like this haven't really been able to cash in. His family's farm is roughly 70 miles from Belém, the capital of the state of Pará, which grows more than 90% of the açaí produced in Brazil. The only tool they use to climb is a single piece of rope called a piconha. They used to be made of leaves. Today, Lucas' son, Luis Fernando, will go up. The trunks are so thin that climbers have to be lightweight. At the top, they swing from the tree to reach multiple bunches. Going down can be dangerous, too, especially while carrying a large knife and holding an armful of branches. Dropping them could damage the fragile fruit. Lucas and his family harvested 53 baskets like these in 2021, earning them an income of about $950. That's as little as 20 cents per pound. Meanwhile, a pound of processed açaí sorbet can sell for $7 or more in the US. Part of the issue is that Lucas has to sell his açaí as soon as possible because the fruit goes bad fast. That leaves farmers who don't have processing machines with little leverage to negotiate. Merchants bring the açaí to Belém by boat. It's a race against the clock to sell the fruit before it spoils, so markets run overnight. Some açaí gets transported to processing facilities like North Açaí. Every day, 22 tons of fruit are turned into frozen pulp, the açaí that most people outside of Pará are familiar with. Indigenous people living in the Amazon have harvested and consumed açaí for centuries, maybe even millennia. The Brazilian government estimates there are nearly 6,000 quilombola communities in the country. And a 2013 study found roughly 75% still lived in extreme poverty. This isn't snow. It's limestone. And miners risk their lives to carve it out of the white quarries of Egypt. The valuable rock is at the center of a huge industry. And it's used to make everything from cement and glass to plastic and tiles. It's even what the Great Pyramids are made out of. But digging up and cutting these precious blocks is really dangerous. For these guys, each day starts in Minya City at dawn. And this is where the danger begins. These trucks aren't meant for passengers. Workers have gotten injured from falls along the winding journey. The trip to the mountain takes about 40 minutes. Then it's time to get suited up. Since these miners are freelancers, they have to buy their own protective gear. Often homemade cloth masks, gloves, and sunglasses are all miners have to shield them. They grab their tools and descend into the pit. First, miners have to set up these 2 rails. 2 separate machines roll along the tracks. They slice the stone into perfect cuboids beneath. The machines move quickly. They're really heavy, and they're loud. Workers shout at each other to warn the machines are nearby, because the real hazard is those saws. A quick step is all that separates miners from razor-sharp blades. Miners are responsible for fixing the machines when they break and sharpening the blades by hand. That's also risky work. The cutting machines used to have covers, but they fell off years ago. Now the blades are exposed. As the machines cut stone, they kick up rocks in a haunting white cloud of limestone powder. If there's no wind, miners disappear in it like ghosts. It's easy to inhale the fine dust. And if they breathe it long enough, it can cause a lung condition called silicosis. Injuries, sickness, and death in these mines are widely reported, but there aren't any official numbers. At one point, the life expectancy here was just 45 years old. Zaki says many mine owners will offer under $200 by way of workers' comp perfectly cut stones that haven't been sold yet get stacked. But these blocks have already been purchased, so miners throw them straight into the truck. And they have perfect aim. If they're lucky, they might get a $3 stipend for